I'll just try to summarize a little bit what has been said today over the different examples that were exposed around biomimicry applied to urban design, and also maybe give a little bit of perspective of what are the next steps which would be needed ideally both at a national or international level to actually fully triggers the potential of this pluridisciplinary approach. So as it has been illustrated today, what is interesting is in living system, in their very wide diversity, is their capacity to give solution inspiration to actually answer challenges which are broadly encountered and recognized by the urban planners and architects, related to energy efficiency, related to structure optimization, to sober use of materials, to manufacture, water management, or either flow distribution in cities. And what is interesting in biomimicry as well as in living systems, you can actually work either by a functional approach, depending on the scale, or either at a systemic approach. So considering the interactions between different species and their organizations at different scales. And so we had today examples of actually development of biomimicry at these different levels. Sorry, my kid is coming. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I told you this is weekend here. There are plenty of examples that have been developed over the world in terms of envelopes, and so I highly recommend you to go to especially several centers in Germany who are doing a remarkable job about experiencing new ways to design and manufacture either buildings or envelopes. And you have more systemic projects and more systemic reflections, among which you already had talks today, for example, the talk of Nicola and the reflection that were made by Eduardo. And biomimicry is not a new concept. It has been existing for a very long time, and I would say that the traditional architecture is probably not pointed out as bio-inspired, but it's very close to the specifications of living systems. And so if you look at vernacular architecture, for example, it's very close to what we are expecting today to push among the principles of biomimicry. So it's not a new concept. And it has been there has been an increase in the interest about this approach, especially in the field of, let's say, architecture, in mid of the 20th century, because there were, let's say, very influential or remarkable architects like Frei Otto or Mick Pierce in Africa, who really were disruptive in their approach of architecture by working with biologists or by really getting inspiration with a scientific approach and a very rigorous approach regarding biological systems. And so there really was a peak of expectations at the end of the 20th century. And then there is like a kind of a deception because of the lack of methodologies, the lack of probably enough research at the interfaces between biology and other disciplines into that field. And so fortunately, an increasing number of people now, either in academic labs or in architecture and urban design agencies, are working and try to find processes and methodologies to work interdisciplinary, to integrate the biology at the design table, and to be able to replicate what has been done earlier by pioneering architects. This is absolutely non-exhaustive, but these are to me remarkable resources regarding biomimicry, either in general or specifically regarding urban design in the US. And I would be very happy to have your feedback, trying to have a bigger list of resources and probably a map of competences involved in the field of biomimicry applied to urban design. And so there is this report, Typing into Nature, published by Terrapin by Green, which was published 5 to 6 years ago, which gives an overview about the potential of biomimicry in many fields, many scientific areas, or let's say technical areas, with, of course, outputs in the field of architecture. There is also this remarkable reflection and design, let's say, tool and reflection that was developed by Biomimicry Institute and Biomimicry 3.8 around the genius of biome, trying to understand what are the specificities of the different biomes on Earth, and how can they be inspirational to reconsider the way we are designing, especially urban areas and cities. And finally, we are very interested in terms of labels and certification by the Living Building Challenge, which has been actually developed by the Living Future Institute, which to us is as far as we know, is the most ambitious certification and specification grid regarding building design and cities design, and we are very influenced by this specification, which we think is very interesting, and they take actually into account biomimetic principles, and they have had collaborations with the Biomimicry Institute I've just mentioned. These are all the resources in English. Of course, again, it's not exhaustive, and there are plenty of other publications, either, let's say, for wider audience, or a more, let's say, scientific, which is a complement to all the scientific, of course, talks that we had today. But I would highly recommend the introductory book of Michael Paulin on biomimicry and architecture, which I think gives a very accessible overview of the potential of the approach, and then several books of quite famous people in the field of biomimicry applied to architecture, like Petra Gruber, like Jan Mimbers, Thomas Peck, Lydia Badana, or Maybrit Pedersen Zahi. And so just to finish very quickly, okay, this is a very promising field. As we saw, this has been already discussed during the different sessions and addressed through different interactions with the audience. But implementing operationally biomimicry is not that simple. If it was that simple, we would be surrounded by biomimetic buildings and biomimetic opportunities. So that's why, as Eduardo said, at the French level, we launched a working group with all the different stakeholders, which seems to us absolutely necessary to imagine and to think about the training, the method, the processes, the influence that needs to be pushed all together in order to have experimentations in different cities, to have mayors which are already convinced and deciders that would actually command biomimetic buildings and biomimetic urban plannings. In order to pull actually all these actors to get involved into the field of biomimicry. And of course, we have to accelerate research into the field. And fortunately, in France, there is an increase in laboratories, academic laboratories at the interface of biology and architecture or urban planning, which are tackling the challenge of methodologies and tools to facilitate biomimicry. And just as a last slide, I will go deeper for either you can to have a more precise idea of what we're doing and the topics we are addressing here, a few academic publications that we've published. And sorry only for French, for French readers, several documents which we've tried which we wrote or contributed to, trying to deploy and to reach different deciders and stakeholders regarding biomimicry implementation. Thank you very much.